I'm Ham Rockhound. When I was a young boy, I always lost in rock, paper, scissors to, you guessed it, rock. I realized soon after that it wasn't my fault that I kept picking scissors. It was the rock's fault for being a rock. So I made it my life mission to remove all rocks. No matter how big or small, if you want those rocks gone, I'm the guy to call. I'm Ham Rockhound, and this is Rock Hunter. My client today is Harper, who I soon realized is a dog. She loves to dig holes. However, her beach has been invaded by rocks, making her favorite pastime now a thing of the actual past. Depressed by her current situation, I've decided to take on the job. I plan to clear out 100 rocks and try to make a $500 profit. Let's see how it goes. I'm gonna do this right. I gotta collect some data on these rocks. I'm not just going to go out there all willy-nilly and pick up the rocks. I need to create a data set to figure out how big are these rocks and to figure out how long it's gonna take me. So let's go collect some rocks. Here are all the rocks I've collected. I got about 20 here. And what I've done is I've weighed them all and I've made a dot plot, which I'll show you there in a second. What my dot plot shows me is kind of a chunk of where most of my rocks are weighing, which is good, but it's not exactly what I need. I need to find one number that represents the data set that I have of these rocks so I can figure out how long it's going to take me to pick them up and to make my client happy. So there's a way to find our center of measure. And there are 3 centers of measure: the mean, the median, and the mode. The first one I'm going to try out is the mean. The mean you might be familiar with. It's another word for the average. So what I'm going to have to do is take all the rocks that I've weighed, add up their weights, and divide by the number of rocks I've collected. That's 20. All right, so here's my collected data. I made a quick dot plot. My dot plot shows me that most of my rocks are between 0.5 pounds and 1 pound, but I need to know for sure. So what I'll do is first find the mean. Do that by adding them all up, adding up all of my rocks here. So I'm going to hit equals sum, that means adding, parenthesis, and I'll highlight my collected. Enter. That's all the rocks added up, so 63.5 pounds. So to find the average or the mean, I then divide by how many rocks I collected. I collected 20 rocks. So divided by 20, I'm going to write equals. My answer to adding it up was D2, so I'm going to do equals D2 divided by 20. And there's my mean, 3.175. So if you noticed again on my dot plot, most of my rocks were between the 0 pounds and 1 pound range. Now my mean ended up being around 3, which is a lot larger than where the rest of my data is. The reason is this outlier right here. This big rock right here is a lot bigger than the majority of my rocks, making my mean higher than what it should be. So in this case, my mean will not best represent my data. So we're going to go to our second measure of center. That's the median. To do the median, you need to order your data from least to greatest, kind of shown like here, and you want to find the number in the middle. So how big would this rock be? So here's how you find your median, which is the middle on your Google spreadsheet. So here are all your data. Here's my data with the rocks. So I need to find the number in the middle. One way I can do this is I can start coloring cells in. So if I highlight 2 at a time and then hit color, and then I go to the bottom and hit 2 on the bottom, I can start to make my way through to the middle. So doing 2 at a time or 3 at a time, just making sure that you have even on the top and the bottom. Okay, this can take a little while, so we have a bigger data set. So I'm going to show you a quick shortcut after this. Now if I take 2 from here, now look, I'll have 2 there, and that means everything's colored in. We wouldn't need to have something in the middle, so it looks like I need to only color in 1 on each side. Because now I have 2 numbers in the middle, 1.5 and 2. So since I have 1.5 and 2, I need to find the halfway point between there. So what you can do is do 1.5 plus 2 and divide it by 2. Or you can use big brain and think, what's halfway between 1.5 and 2? That is 1.75. So your median is 1.75. So my median was around 1.75, which is closer to my cluster of data if you remember from my dot plot, but it's still outside of that cluster. So we're going to check to the last measure of center, the mode. The mode is the most frequent number, so it's actually quite easy to find. We need to find our mode. That's our last part of our measure of center. Our mode is the easiest one to find. It's the most popular number, the number that shows up the most. The best way to do this is to refer back to your dot plot. So going back to my dot plot, the number that has the most dots above it is your mode because it shows up the most. In this case, my mode is 1 because there are 4 dots above 1, making my mode 1. So now that I have my 3 measures of center, I need to decide which one best represents my data. Remember, I want to find the number that best fits inside my cluster on my dot plot. My cluster was between 0 and 1 pounds. So if we reflect and go back to my mean was 3.175, a lot higher than my cluster, and that's due to my outlier, the bigger rock. So the mean is not going to work. The median was a little bit better. It was closer to my cluster. It was 1.75, but regardless, it was outside of my cluster of data. So I don't think the median was the best. So in my case, my mode was my best measure of center. My mode was 1, and my cluster was between 0 to 1. So that means the mode is my best measure of center, and that lets me know what I can do in terms of my client work. If I know that most of my rocks weigh 1 pound, and I need to collect 100 rocks, how many pounds will I collect? Well, 1 times 100 is 100 pounds. For me, personally, I can collect 100 rocks that weigh 100 pounds in total in about a couple hours. So I'm going to go back to my client Harper and try to make a deal and get my 500 bucks. Let's see how it goes. All right, Harper. Found out with some statistics that those 100 rocks I got to collect out there, they're going to weigh about 100 pounds. And I'm going to need about 2 hours to do that job. And I'm just asking for $500. What do you think? Not gonna lie, really disappointed in the outcome today, but I guess you just can't trust a dog to pay you $500. But I did learn how to do mean, median, mode. Catch you next time on Rock Hunter.